If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. We have battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40k content every week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video, we will be taking a look at an Adeptus Custodes list that won a GT during Week 3 of April 2025. This list was played by Thomas Cosgrove at the Red Dragon GT in Canada. Thomas was playing an Adeptus Custodes list using the Solar Spearhead detachment. Thomas won the GT with a very rare tie game for his final game. Let's take a look at his list, the path to victory, and how the Solar Spearhead detachment benefits the units in his list. I will finish with the basic game plan for the list. I did not write the list or win with the list. All credit goes to Thomas for this list. First, let's take a look at his Solar Spearhead list. It came to 2,000 points. His Warlord was a Telemon heavy Dreadnought with that Augury Uplink enhancement to give him that 5-up feel no pain. The weapons, he did have the Arachna Storm Cannon with the Telemon Fist weapon. The other character in his list was an Achillus Dreadnought with the Adamantine Talisman enhancement to boost up the damage for that Dreadnought. For the other datasheets, he did have 3 Caladius Grav-tanks, all with the Arachna's Heavy Blaze Cannon. Another Telemon Heavy Dreadnought, kitted out the same as the first one with the Arachna Storm Cannon and the Fist weapon. 3 Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts, all with Combi Bolters, Multi-Meltas, and their combat weapon. 2 units of 4 Prosecutors, and 2 units of 4 Witchseekers. This list came to 2,000 points. Let's take a look at Thomas's path to victory. Thomas played at the Red Dragon GT on Week 3, April 2025. Thomas, his Game 1 was against the Chaos Space Marines. This was a 94-50 win. Game 2 was against the Necrons, a 86-58 win. His third game was against the Eldari. This was a 97-82 win. His fourth game and his most dominant game was against the Tau Empire with a big 97-29 win. His last game, Game 5 against the Death Guard, was a really interesting game because this came down to an 87-87 tie. Congratulations to Thomas Cosgrove to win that GT. Even though Game 5 was a tie, Thomas was the only player without a technical loss. Thomas did finish the GT with a total of 461 out of 500 points. It's nice to see that Solar Spearhead is not dead. Instead of going through all the rules of the Solar Spearhead, there are some videos on the channel that cover this whole detachment in more detail. We'll just cover the detachment rule. We'll mention the stratagems as we go through the units. The Solar Spearhead detachment rule, there's 2 different parts. The first one is Orc Armor. There is 3 parts of this Orc Armor detachment rule. Will Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit from your army at starting strength, unless that unit is aircraft or battle shock, add 2 to the objective control of that model's unit. The second, while an Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit from your army is below starting strength, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll of 1. The third part, while Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit from your army is below half strength, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, re-roll the hit roll of 1 and re-roll the wound roll of 1. Mori Toy Ancients, add 2 inches to the movement of models in Adeptus Custodes walker units from your army, add 1 to the advance and charge rolls made from such units. What we can also do in the Muster's Army step is you can select up to 2 Adeptus Custodes walker models from your army. Those selected units gain the character keyword, so that's why those 2 Dreadnoughts in the list can have those 2 enhancements. Let's start the unit breakdown with the Telemon Heavy Dreadnoughts. The 3 Telemon Dreadnought build seems to be dead or on its last legs. Thomas looks to have dropped the 3rd Telemon for a 3rd Caladius Grav-tank, traded forward pressure for some more backline shooting pressure. Thomas did opt to make one of the 2 Telemon Dreads into a character, giving it that very powerful Augury Uplink enhancement for that 5-up feel no pain. With no Wardens in the list, that character Telemon is the toughest unit he has and probably the unit he used to pressure an objective or area of the board. Both are equipped with the fist weapons for punching out tough stuff, while the Storm Cannon can do some decent infantry chaff clearing damage. When Relentless Persecution is used with these Telemons, they have around an average 21-inch advance and charge range. Move through ruins with Unstoppable, these 2 Telemons are great for putting pressure on objectives. Once planted on the objective, they can be hard to remove, even more so for that Telemon with that 5-up feel no pain on top of their built-in -1 damage. Use Flawless Construction to boost their survivability against hard-hitting anti-tank weapons. Then we have our other character, the Contemptor Achillus Dreadnought. The Achillus is an interesting choice and deadly choice. The Achillus is our anti-tank melee dreadnought, 5 attacks, hitting on a 2+, strength 12, AP 2, damage D6 +1. We add the Adamantine Talisman enhancement. Now we have 6 attacks, strength 13, and damage D6 +2. D6 +2 makes this now a decent elite infantry killer. Since 3 is the lowest damage we can get now, you always have +2 damage and you can't roll any lower than a 1, so 3 is the lowest we're going to get, and that's perfect for killing 3 wound models like Terminators. Strength 13 can now threaten most vehicles in the game. AP 2 seems a bit low for this giant Dreadnought Spear though. Our Guardian Spears from our Custodians have AP 2. This thing seems it should be AP 3 or even AP 4. It's a giant spear, but somehow it's only AP 2. The Achillus Dread Spear does have the Lance ability, giving it +1 to the wound roll when it charges, meaning when this Dreadnought charges a toughness 12 vehicle like a Land Raider or a Knight, it will be wounding on a 2+. It has that strength 13 spear with +1 to the wound from Lance. The Detachment Rule will give us reroll hits of 1 below starting strength and reroll hits and wounds of 1 if below half strength. The Achillus character Dreadnought can become very reliable and very deadly. The 5+ invulnerable save does make it a bit easier to take out than the Telemon or the Caladius. What it does have is 6 attacks with a potential of 48 damage. If Thomas hits, wounds, and rolls 6s for all damage, not to mention sustained hits or martial kata. It's going to be pretty rare to roll all 6s for damage. Either way, there is still a lot of damage potential in this Dread Spear. I see why this unit was in this list. The last of the Dreadnoughts is the 3 Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts. Even after the 10-point nerf from the March Balance update, these are still one of the better options for the Custodes Dreadnoughts in this detachment. Thomas loaded up on the Venerable Contemptors with a maximum of 3. Let's take a look at their datasheet and what makes them so good in this detachment. Movement 6, Toughness 9 with a 2-up save and a 5-up invulnerable, 10 wounds, 6+ leadership, and an OC of 3. For the ranged weapons, we have the Combi Bolter. You can either have the Assault Cannon or the Multi-Melta. Thomas used the Multi-Melta, and that's what most of us use when we use these Dreadnoughts. The melee weapon, the Contemptor Combat Weapon, is an impressive 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 12, AP 2, damage 3. If you're familiar with the Telemon, you know that's the exact same melee profile of the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. So surprisingly, these things hit just as hard as a Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. For the abilities, we do have Deadly Demise 1, Martial Kata, so we can have sustained hits 1 or lethal hits with this Dreadnought. Then the standout ability is Unyielding Ancients. Unyielding Ancients, the first time this model is destroyed, remove it from play without resolving the Deadly Demise ability. Then at the end of the phase, you can roll 1d6 on a 2+, set this model back up on the battlefield as close as possible to where it was destroyed and not within engagement range of enemy units with d6 wounds remaining. As you've seen, it has the same melee profile of the Telemon with some multi-melta threat. Then best of all, it stands back up on a 2+ once per game. Against opponents who only really have one way to take out these Dreadnoughts with either melee or shooting are in trouble. As we've seen, Thomas dominated his match with the Tau. The Tau have no reliable way to kill these in the fight phase besides Tank Shock or possibly Farsight. These 3 Dreads can charge into the Tau, knowing they have a very good chance that if and when the Tau gun them down, they will stand back up to cave in some more Xenos skulls. Like the Achillus, they only have a 5+ invulnerable save. They can't walk through a bullet storm to get into combat like the Telemon can. Just like the Telemon though, the Venerable Dreadnought will love having access to advance and charge, -1 to the wound, and move through terrain stratagems. Punishment Inescapable is probably used more on the Grav-tanks if and when it is used. The Venerable does have the Multi-Melta, but it is not something to spend 1 CP on to make the shooting a bit better. With 3 of these in a tournament win, it looks like these zombie Dreadnoughts are still going strong. On to the 3 Caladius Grav-tanks. 3 Caladius in this detachment is one heck of a gun line. This detachment buffs these tanks through the roof. If even 1 wound is taken off these tanks, the Detachment Rule will give them reroll hits of 1. Let's take a quick look at the datasheet and see why reroll hits of 1 is such a big deal. For the ranged weapons, Thomas did have the Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon. It has a 48-inch range, 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 12, AP 3, d6 +2 damage. It has the twin linked ability, and we get to re-roll the wound roll. We combine that with the tank's ability, Advanced Firepower. Each time this model makes an attack with the Twin Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon that targets an enemy monster or vehicle unit, that attack has the Lethal Hits ability. It comes down to one word: reliable. If even one wound is taking off these tanks, they will be hitting on 2s, rerolling hits of 1, lethal hits. Then with Twin Linked, they will be rerolling their wounds as well. This detachment makes these things very, very reliable. Now, if that wasn't enough, these 3 bad boys have access to some powerful stratagems. Flawless Construction for 1 CP is -1 to the wound roll if the incoming attack's strength is higher than the Caladius Toughness 11. This covers the Grav-tank's weakness to big high strength anti-tank weapons. Punishment Inescapable to ignore hit modifiers and cover. Great for those vehicles who have used smoke or other -1 to hit abilities, good for digging out tough units in cover too. Relentless Persecution gives the Caladius Grav-tank advance and shoot. The opponent has to plan for the fact that these tanks could advance and shoot. It doesn't have to be used every turn, but it's just the fact that these tanks could advance and shoot will make the opponent have to be wary of where they move their units. Unstoppable for 1 CP can be used on these tanks as well. This stratagem will 90% be used on the Dreadnoughts in the list. Like Relentless Persecution, it is the threat that these could go through the wall to get a line of sight. These tanks add so much potential long-range threat, makes going into shooting lanes a nightmare. Then on top of that, the fact that if the opponent does not one-shot the tank, it will only make the shooting even harder in the next Custodes turn. Threat overload is the name of the game. Let's finish the unit breakdown with our Psychona units. Thomas did have 2 units of 4 Witchseekers. The Witchseekers are great for those turn 1 points. They have that 6-inch scout ability that really helps for grabbing objectives early or secondary scoring where we may have to stand out in the open. Much easier to work around losing a Witchseeker unit after scoring some secondary points than losing a whole Dreadnought that had to stand out in the open to do containment. They can cause battle shock test against an enemy unit hit by their torrent weapon. These Psychona units do not get much stratagem support. The Witchseekers are still great for vehicle heavy lists. It frees those Dreadnoughts and vehicles up to go out and murder. Last, we have 2 units of 4 Prosecutors. Not a lot of detachment synergy with the Prosecutors or the Witchseekers. These 2 Prosecutors would be cheap secondary scoring units, possibly one to stand on his home objective. These Psychona units have a 3+ save that can be oddly hard to remove with small arms fire when they are in cover. They become much harder to kill when targeted by a psychic attack to get use out of their Daughters of the Abyss ability for a 3+ feel no pain against psychic and mortal wounds. That's our unit breakdown. Let's move on to a general game plan. Here is a general game plan for this list. All credit for this list goes to Thomas. This is more of a rough game plan of what this list can do, not what it did do. Like most of these Solar Spearhead lists, the game plan is quite simple: control the midboard, steal objectives, and stop the opponent from scoring. A lot of the time, these Solar Spearhead lists are not going to table the enemy, but dominate on points. Once Thomas gets these Telemons on objectives, in the Achillus with the Venerable Dreadnoughts making combat, all these tough units make it hard to get the objectives back, and we can start racking up the points, holding a lot of these primary objectives. The Solar Spearhead Detachment Rule also boosts the OC of the Dreads by 2 if they are at full strength. That brings the Telemon's OC up to 6, perfect for stealing objectives from a 5-man unit with a total of 5 OC, charge in to try to kill them, or just tag the objective to steal it. The Venerable Dreads, however, may need to charge in to smash up the unit some, since they would only go from OC3 to OC5. OC5 is still useful for stealing objectives from other vehicle and monster units though. Use the threat of all these different things we could do to keep the opponent from getting too aggressive or too comfortable. As I like to say for these Solar Spearhead lists, threat overload. Pressure our opponent into making mistakes that we can take advantage of. With 6 Dreads and 3 Grav-tanks, the pressure is on in this list. Like always, I will finish with some final thoughts. Congratulations to Thomas once again. You make your fellow Custodes proud. So far, we've had Adeptus Custodes GT wins with Solar Spearhead, Lines of the Emperor, and the Shieldhost Detachment since the March balance update. How long will we go before we see Talons of the Emperor win? I would not hold my breath for an Orc Champions or a Null Maiden Vigil win though. You never know, but those 2 detachments do have a hard time at the top tables. This should cover most of the GT winning Adeptus Custodes list since the March 2025 balance update. If I have missed your list, I am sorry. I did take the month of April off just to recharge and get some videos typed up. I do believe there has been a win or two this month, so we may cover those as well. That way, we can get caught up on this What's Winning Right Now series. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40k content. Like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.